I have relegated that thing to the past. I would not
The thing has been banished from our time.
Yeah.
You sent it to the Phantom Zone.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Did I Do That? It's a show about kind of graphic design and the mistakes we make on the way to making designs because, you know, it's all part of the process. I'm Sean Schumacher, and joining me today is a colleague, a friend, an assistant professor of graphic design here at the Portland State University. She is perhaps best known as the director of the film Graphic Means, which is about kind of the history of design before we had these computers, these beep boop machines, doing so much of our work for us, making life so much easier. And there's no problems for that. And also, she's the editor of a brand new book called Baseline Shift, The Untold Stories of Women in Graphic Design History. Please welcome Briar Levit. Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for being on this very dumb show.
I have to tell you, I'm actually an associate professor.
You're an associate professor. I have associate written down on the card and I said assistant.
You said assistant. What are you trying to do? Take away all my work from me? This is the fun of academic ranks is that they make no sense. No, they don't. I mean, who was I an assistant to?
Yeah,
you're an assistant, and who right now? Who are you assisting?
Well,
no
the problem
one but
is
yourself.
I'm assisting everyone, which is maybe an unhealthy work-life balance situation for me.
You should be assisting yourself and your students.
Yeah,
That's it.
But the natural progression from assistant is not to associate, a word that is like a filler word.
Well, you're also
like TK professor.
Yeah, you're an associate of everyone. So yeah, none of it makes sense.
And I love that the word that everyone calls us is like the highest rank, the full professor, just professor.
Yeah, nothing else.
Like it doesn't really make you feel like you achieved.
Yeah, because they removed the other words.
Yeah, like when I was just a part-time teacher, an adjunct as we call it in the biz.
Yeah,
they would call me professor too, and I'm not that.
Yeah.
You know,
there's a lot of confusion around it. Students generally don't know and don't care.
No. They're not researching your CV before they start in your class.
Yeah.
Although I am the kind of person that did do stuff like that.
Well, you are a special guy.
It was harder to do back then because people were not. I went to school 1,000 years ago and the internet was not yet really a going concern for schools. Like my community college's website was just like basically the classic like 1996 Yahoo homepage that had 400,000 links on it.
Right.
You know,
I mean, I definitely had professors that I had to call by Professor so-and-so.
Oh, really?
Not in my design department so much, but in my English class or any humanities classes.
Yeah. I feel like that sort of formality is like so much more common in those spaces. Like,
yeah, I don't think we did so much in design.
We're designers are just we're very informal. We're
cash.
Yeah.
We wear jeans and Doc Martens to work. I mean, I do.
Well, but yeah, like, so you've done so much work in spaces around like kind of exposing the history of what design was. Because we have a lot of students that come into this field that just starting out and they think like design, computers, they're BFFs. There's only that.
Even when I started on a computer because it was 95, 96.
Right
but
there
I was,
at the cusp.
Yeah. I mean, I was in San Francisco though. So naturally our school was adopting very early, but we still had a lot of the trappings, I guess, of manual production. I had to mount just about everything and I had to have overlays and certain things like that. I was aware of some of it. I had to take a class in marker drawing. Yeah.
Wait, what?
Well, my school, San Francisco State, had more weight towards product design. And so the drawing class was product design drawing.
Yeah.
And that was not yet digital. I mean, it was pretty cool, actually. We had to draw everything with all the gray tone markers. And yeah, it was kind of neat. And I had to design a product and I designed like a PDA, a personal digital assistant. You know, I just thought those were really cool. I knew my dad was really into them.
Oh, I was so into them. I remember the great shame of telling, I want to say it was maybe my fifth grade class, how excited I was about kind of the future being PDAs.
Yeah.
and some girl at another table going, public displays of affection. And just feeling like I was the tiniest person in the entire world.
Yeah.
But then I bought myself a Newton, a wonderful Apple.
You had a Newton?
Oh, there was a period when Apple was charging barn burner type prices. Just, we need to get rid of these things.
Oh yeah.
The place where they buried all the ET video games out in the New Mexico desert is filled up. So
they were such a neat concept, you know. They
really
looked
were
cool, and they had a stylus, I think.
They did.
Yeah.
Which you were very losable, extremely losable.
Yeah.
Also extremely losable battery pack, which was what did my.
Yeah. So my school was had some of those things, but yeah, we were, you know, I was making most of my stuff on the computer, but I definitely had a vague idea of how things were done. I remember being shown a video about graphic design and what it entails. So they were showing us some video that was probably from the late 80s and, you know, just what we can expect in our new career.
Oh, sure.
And I got scared because it was like graphic design entails a lot of math and calculation and, you know, I don't really know why they showed it to us because
were they maybe a little over enrolled and they wanted to kind of fix their numbers a little bit. Can we get some people over to the art major? I
think they had always shown this video for years and they didn't really put two and two together that it was no longer necessary to talk about, you know, specking type and things like that. So I didn't even fully understand everything that was happening in the video.
Yeah.
I came back to this stuff just because I go to the thrift store all the time and I was looking at books that showed all these processes and I loved it. And I was putting more of the pieces together and I knew my students had no idea.
Yeah.
And probably didn't even think about it much.
No. And they seem like, I think you've experienced the same thing that I have, which is like, they really do think that there was a start to graphic design and it was like 1995 or something. Yeah. And before that, or
they just don't think about how things came together. It's not that they don't care. It's just sort of like doesn't enter their mind really until you say something like in lectures, they say, by the way, there was no Photoshop when this was made, you know, they go, wait a minute.
Yeah. How?
Yeah.
Huh?
So, yeah. And that's what really sparked it all.
You started out in the Bay Area. You got your undergrad there, and then you went off to you know pip pip cheerio, the UK. Yeah. Well, first I worked for a few years because I truly believe in not going directly to grad school. I didn't think I would go to grad school, but I went to work for a while at Discovery Channel stores, their headquarters. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that was tremendously educational for me. My boss, she was great to me and she helped me, you know, just develop my skills. I learned how to deal with working with other people who had other jobs within the company. And then I managed to get hired as the art director at Bitch Magazine. And that was only a part-time job. And I thought, what am I going to do? How am I going to support myself? So my boss at Discovery Channel, when I went to her, I said, look, can I work 3 days a week? And she said, yes, you can. And I'm going to keep your salary the same. Wow. And it blew my mind. She was a really important person in my early days. Yeah. And then I got to work with just incredibly smart and challenging people at Bitch. Actually. Yeah, I guess I had my timeline all mixed up because you were their founding art director. No, not founding. No, Ben Shaken was. Oh, yeah. Well, but you were a very early art director there. Yes, I was third. And like, I didn't realize that was before grad school for you. Yes, so it was before grad school and after. Oh, yeah. You know, it was like I was there, and then I decided to go to grad school. I thought nothing's holding me down. This is my chance to live abroad, and you know. It's the only way I can live abroad. Like it's very hard to live abroad as an American. And I thought I needed to push my work ultimately. Like I didn't intend to be a professor because I just didn't even know that what it required, to be honest, was required for it. I just wanted to get better. Yeah. And so I went and it was very transformative for the way I thought about my work. And when I came back, I was doing freelance, but after a little while, the art director who was there moved on and I stepped in
again, who you work with is so important. And I love working with feminists, and I love working with content, that is interesting, educational, and maybe dense is a better word, but I do better with sort of informational content.
Yeah, some meaty stuff.
Meaty, yes. I've done some branding and stuff like that, but I actually became a designer because I originally wanted to design exhibitions for like science and history museums. So I kind of do that, but now it's just for publications, didactic kind of design, but it's in books.
Has a lot more life to it ultimately.
Yeah. Exhibitions go away and books stick around.
You don't have that great moment at the end of Strike where you're just all the things are being put in the garbage can.
Yeah, it must be
oh, look
so
at my
horrible.
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Although I've had that with books too, and it's maybe not awesome. Although there was one that I did throw away and I was very, very happy about the throwing away I did of it.
I mean, magazines get recycled, but if they are loved enough, they get shared, passed on to someone else.
Or, I mean, God willing, they make their way to doctors or dentist's offices and then they live forever.
I mean, it's going to be a pretty chill doctor's office that carries Bitch magazine. Maybe, it's possible.
I don't know. I would want to go to that doctor or dentist.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot better than Country Living or whatever.
Whatever's in there.
I used to have a Kia and I went to the Kia dealership to have it serviced, which is a really great thing when you are, it's COVID times and you are on a stretch of highway. So there's no place to go. So you are just in the dealership with your mask on for 2 hours. But I discovered their magazine pile and they did have an issue of Country Living from 1996.
Wow.
That had like ads for the Previa in it. And it's just like
refresh this shit.
Yeah, it's like the magazine is older than your car dealership. I don't even think Kia was in the US at that point.
Wow.
How did you get this? It was great, though. Good times, great oldies. That's what they say about classic country living.
Little archaeology magazine. For you there.
All the wordiest advertisements in the world. That's for those of you that are like younger, you may not be familiar with how many words used to be in advertisements. It was a million.
Yeah, it was like a whole story.
Yeah.
Told in an ad.
Yeah, like you would see like the classic Volkswagen ads of like there's the big picture and then there's like 2 columns of text underneath that are little tiny. That's like a small amount of text compared to most advertisements of that era.
And get back to the Victorian era, forget about it.
Yeah, text ahoy.
Yeah. They'll tell you every little detail about their product that will cure all your bowel movement issues.
All of them accurate for sure.
Yeah.
You'd have no idea how good cocaine is for the bowel, apparently.
There are so many bowel products.
Yeah, what were they eating?
What was going on with their bellies?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Not that our diets are better or anything like that.
Maybe they just weren't eating a lot of greens.
That's probably it.
I'm thinking Americans and Brits at least.
Yeah, all the sewage in their water and whatnot probably is not also great for the old Constitution.
Yeah.
But I guess that's a problem we have sometimes here too. Like when it rains, Portland, don't be in the river when it rains because you will have some stinky stuff near you. Yeah. So yeah, you worked at Bitch Magazine for a bit.
Yeah. Then headed off to the UK, went to Central St. Martin's. And, I think it was nice for me to go there and get sort of a different angle of design.
Yeah.
Be around a very international group. I'd say only a quarter of my program cohort were British.
Really?
Yeah. It was great to be around such an international group and see just how conceptual things get in Europe compared to in America.
Yeah. Like because I don't have a MFA in design. I have an MFA in art. Like what does an MFA in design, or I guess an MA in design?
Yeah, it's an MA in the UK. So I was in a group with people who are making work that had to do with outdoor spaces because I was making a walking book, hiking book for a region outside of London that's looked at. I mean, it's funny when I look back, it was about history of the space and hiking. It combined the two things I like, which is history and hiking, and looking at, as you walk through these trails, some of the parts of these trails are really ancient and you're passing these stately homes. Then you're going to this train station that has this brutalist, 60s look.
So much concrete.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of England is these contrasts. The book was sort of visualizing all these eras and trying to challenge the usual format of a hiking book. Yeah. And our tutor was very into wayfinding and outdoors. He was a hiker himself, or as they say, say over there, a rambler.
Yeah, the rambling culture, like Americans may not realize that there's like you were saying, like these ancient paths that are like 1,000 years old in some cases.
They just go through people's back.
Yeah. And you just like wander, you cross over fences and stuff. And it's just
you stop in a pub for lunch. Yeah. It's really nice.
It's not like it's
sort of a culture of like middle-aged people, unlike here. There's a lot of like young people that like to hike and get stoned, and it's not really like that over there. It's like moms and dads and grandparents and stuff. So I always thought it was funny when I was on the trail. I just sort of felt like the youngest person on the trail. It's fun.
I mean, is it generally like a pretty low key hike in terms of just like elevation and stuff?
I got really cocky because I was like, I'm from California. We have mountains.
Yeah.
This place has fells, which are like
that doesn't even sound impressive.
Yeah, it's a hill, really. So I went to
good try, UK. You picked a worse word.
Well, I got really cocky and I went to Helvellyn, which is their tallest mountain. And I was like,
that actually does sound a little nerve-wracking.
I know, Helvellyn. I mean, it sounds scary. And I happened to go there when the weather was rainy. I didn't have the right gear. It was not great.
Oh, no.
It was there was some areas where it was a bit rocky.
Did you have to climb?
Someone loaned me their rain gear, thankfully. I had hiking boots. And also the guidebook I had was more of a reference book by A.W. Wainwright, who made all these small reference books that have these amazing diagrams of various walks and all the views from above and sort of different ascents you can make. But it's not a geological survey map. That's what you need to do something like Helvellyn. And I was like, I have my A.W. Wainwright, And that was not good. I got humbled real fast.
Oh no.
And you certainly can't do that stuff in Scotland. Scotland is and Wales is where it's really legit.
It's very cold, I would imagine.
It's like the Hobbit in there.
Oh no.
So in the South, it's like little hills.
Yeah.
It's just like what's Game of Thrones. It's like the South is all easy peasy and the North is where it's rough. There's some
Teletubbies music playing as you're walking over those little fells. But.
Yeah, it's all golden sunshine. No, it gets rainy there too. I loved it. I love being there. I managed to make my work about the outside so that I could go hiking and I could travel around. And
damn it, that's a good idea. I should have done that instead of this.
That's
a job that has me confined to a windowless room.
Oh yeah, dark room with foam on the walls.
Yes, I can't even have the overhead lights on because they buzz so much.
Oh man!
But yeah, that's so awesome. But that also like dovetails with one of the here in the PSU graphic design program. We have a terrible building.
Yeah.
And inside the terrible building, we once had a weird little vending machine, and that was where I got I think the very first. I think I hadn't even met you yet, but I got this out of one of your inside or Into the Brambles guides, which I assume is kind of like part of that series.
Yeah, that sort of came from when I did my walking book in the UK, and then I made one for a walk in the hills of Oakland.
Yeah.
And there are beautiful parks in the hills of Oakland, Berkeley, El Cerrito. And this was not as I couldn't do as much non-traditional stuff with it because I had to print it and I had to be able to afford it.
Yeah.
My other one I had used all different kinds of paper and I made these wild die cuts and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, that was really fun too. I just continued making work around that because I enjoyed it.
I loved that little thing. And it's like the perfect little size.
Yeah.
It's like a little...
That was influenced by A.W. Wainwright. Yeah. He's an inspiration to me.
So you mentioned that book, like it is more of an overview, the Wainwright book. Like, what does it look like?
He was an accountant who loved walking. This was in the 50s.
I love how like up until like 20 years ago, you could just be anything. And if you wanted to do anything else, you'd just be like, yeah, I'm doing this now.
Yeah.
Like there's so many buildings in Portland that are just like the architect was some guy. And he just wanted to, some of them are falling down.
Yeah.
But, like the building that I lived in when I was a student was just like a guy who wanted to make a building. And so he did it and no one stopped him because he had the money to do it, I guess. So capitalism works, I guess, is what I came to.
I mean,
maybe that's not a good.
This is a little more humble. This guy was just making a book.
A more attainable goal, certainly.
Yeah. Yeah, he just started recording some information about showing different ascents you could take. The coolest thing was he does these diagrams from the top of the fell or the mountain where it's a 360 view, and he tells you everything that you're looking at in a diagram format that I hadn't seen before. So he's an information designer basically. And then everything is handwritten.
Oh.
So it's very neatly written, but it's got this very warm quality to it, and it's about, 5x6.
So it's kind of like you're reading a little beautifully information designed journal, essentially.
Yes, exactly. Like you feel like you picked up someone's field guide, that he's been collecting this information, but in fact, it's been checked and, yeah. I can show you some of this stuff.
I would love to see. This also reminds me of a book that I picked up very, very recently that I should show you, which is kind of the opposite in terms of scale. It's like this. I mean, it's a case bound, hard cover book that is. I mean, it's coffee table book size, but like the entire thing is this beautiful like gouache painting, and like it's all like hand done script, and it's just about kind of nature in Oregon. And
I love that.
Like
stuff.
It feels like it's just a journey.
I love those. I've been looking recently again at the books illustrated by the guy who did the Gnomes books.
The Gnome book. I had never seen the Gnome book, but I went to somebody's house for Thanksgiving, and they had the Gnome book, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
The Gnome book is astonishing.
Yeah. It's just incredible.
It's like it's all hand lettered, right?
Hand lettered and obviously hand painted, and like it's gouache or watercolor.
It's a very thick volume, all about kind of gnomes and their ways. As if
it's an anthropological but it feels like you're reading someone's notebook about them.
This is someone who has been collecting. This is their life's work. They've infiltrated the gnomes, and now their gnomes' true secrets revealed. The Fox special, essentially. And
his name is like Hartveld or something. He's Dutch. So that one was written by one person and then the illustrator, but that illustrator has done a lot of things. And the other night just needed to chill out. I was kind of over energized, and I pulled out his book called The Forest. And it's just beautiful, beautiful studies of different animals, foxes, deer, rabbits, hares, and handwritten notes about their lifestyle, what they eat, everything. I was actually just about to upload that to the Fonts in Use site because there's a typeface that's used in it that I'm curious about.
Oh, yes. And that's so those of you who don't know, maybe if you are a graphic designer and you are like, what is a font? What does this font do? Or you just want some like cool reference material? Fontsinuse.com, I believe.
Yes.
Is a truly astonishing compendium of fonts that are in use in places. I did a bad job describing it.
Well, it just shows fonts in use in actual published works, basically. And I use it mostly to look for different eras of type, really.
Yeah, because it's all eras, really. Like it goes, there's stuff from the 1800s in there, but also
one of the creators has a specialty in 19th century. I would say he's done a lot of research around that. I tend to like, there's a lot of good, mid-century 70s stuff. So yeah, if I put it up on there, I can expect that one of them or someone else can leave a comment and tell me what that typeface is. And then it's there for other people to discover.
Yeah. So and you can if you find a typeface that you're like, ooh. Yeah. Ooh. And you can see how, because there's like a personality. Like if you are not a graphic designer and you're listening to this show and you're wondering why are there so many fonts? There's too many fonts. Yeah. Because they all have different personalities. And when you mix them together, you can really change that personality. You can make it a lot funkier or a lot, stinkier or other terms that are maybe more visual,
I think it's also a good way to understand the history of the development of typefaces and sort of where the context for, how things developed. What did Cooper Black, how was it used when it first came out versus how it was sort of co-opted, things like that.
To be used for rude t-shirts in 2012.
Right. Or the 70s first.
Yeah, that's true. So the history of rude t-shirts.
Yeah. Everything's cyclical, of course. And I put something up there that I was able to get more information because someone who knew more about it than I did could offer information in the comments. So that was cool.
Oh, that's so cool. So Briar, you brought in some things, I believe, for us to look at. Or really, you brought a story.
I have a story.
I should say. You
I don't
brought
have
a story
thing because I have relegated that thing to the past. I would not
the
keep.
thing has been banished from our time.
Yeah.
You sent it to the Phantom Zone.
It might exist in an archive, to be honest.
I mean,
weirdly, I can tell you why. Because it was made for Bitch, and everything gets archived at. I can tell you later. I forget where things get archived, but
do they have like a
university.
A storage unit? Oh, it's actual it's a university collection type of deal.
Like
that's fancy.
The papers and a lot of proofs and things like that have been sent for many years to this university. And I want to say I think it starts with a D and I cannot think of it. It's a big one.
University.
It's a big one. Anyway.
Dan's University.
Yeah, it's Dan's University.
He runs
you got it.
Yeah. He runs it out of his basement. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have 2 degrees.
So it may exist like in some folder.
Yeah. That's so okay. So now I'm very curious. So it was a thing that you made at Bitch Magazine. Was this during your first?
Yeah, it was like
tenure?
right when I got there.
Okay.
I'm probably like
you're fresh out of school.
22, maybe 23. I had started at Discovery Channel as a production artist doing like signage for prices for tchotchkes, like bouncing balls.
Yeah, we should circle back. Because I remember the Discovery Channel store selling a lot of kind of like Brookstone-y type of.
Yeah, it sold.
But like more science.
Weird tech that wasn't quality. You know, it's like if you want to buy technology, don't buy it at the mall. You know. And then it sold, some cute toys, these little things like bouncing balls and dinosaurs and things like that. One of my big jobs was just to go through these long cork files and update prices and things like that. Eventually, I got to design the posters that went in the windows. Well, that was very exciting.
That's much more glamorous.
Yeah. And I did a lot of signage for mall events. So
like what kind of events is Discovery
Shark?
Of course. I mean, the only vestige of Discovery Channel as educational institution that's kind of left.
I know, it's wild. It is wild.
It's all truck drivers now and their icy adventures. I
do remember doing stuff for what was his name? Chris. He did the decorating show. I mean, they were already on that path when I was there. So there
have been so many dumb phases of reality TV on those channels.
Yeah. And the sad thing is I had just missed a good period because they had just bought out the Nature Company, which was a really beautiful shop.
Yeah, I remember that.
They had a beautiful identity that I think was either done by Pentagram or I forget who actually did the identity, but it was beautiful.
And I would have been
happy. I would have been happy to work with that identity, but no, I had to work with this 4-color logo that was really awkward.
Bizarre logo that they had until like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's got a bar and it's got the globe.
Right.
It's
a
got
4-color globe, like not smart.
It's got the ugliest way you could write the word discovery, basically.
Then I got promoted to designer. I have more experience. I understand more about the printing process. But at Discovery Channel, we had people who were print buyers. That's their job title. So they managed all the printing. Like I would come and look at the color with them. We had a print box there and everything.
Yeah.
But we had 2 people who managed the printing because we had so many shops. And
you're making the design and they're handling all the logistics of turning it into real thing. God, that would be amazing.
It was pretty posh.
Oh.
So, then here I am, art director, going from designer to art director. I mean, I couldn't call myself art director. I felt totally wrong. I mean, now I don't think people have a problem doing that, but I felt weird. I said I was a designer for Bitch, but I was in over my head. I mean, I can say it now. I don't think I was admitting it to myself at the time, but I thought, oh, this is no problem. It's a black and white magazine. Yeah, sure. It's 96 pages, but
was it a monthly at that time?
No, quarterly.
Okay.
And the cover was in color. At first I thought, yeah, no problem. I felt a little like this is not going to be a problem. But once I was in there.
How much? But that's like 90% of starting out in design, though, is like this will be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I get there. And of course, the Bitch offices do not have the posh things that I was used to, like a printer that printed with PostScript.
Oh, no. That seems quite basic even then.
I know. It was so I'd print things out. They would be pixelated. And
yeah.
I forget. I had a workaround. I forget what it was. Like I had to do so much troubleshooting. Like, as a designer in the early 2000s and then the 90s, you had to be able to just troubleshoot a lot.
Yeah. And like there's so many things we take for granted now of just like you send a thing to a printer and it looks like the thing that you sent. But like PostScript was like this I think Adobe still charges $10 bazillion to use it, which is why so few printers have it for real now and just have like knockoff things.
Yeah.
But like that was like the only thing that you could have in your printer that would make it print good. Otherwise, it would just be
it's
like.
Just funny because this had to be 2001, I think.
Yeah.
So
printers. We talk about printers as like they've not gotten any better in a long time, but there was a period where they were just bad.
Yeah.
Unless you were spending $5,000 on a printer.
I mean, that was a problem for this little magazine. There was an issue that was done right before the previous art director left. We needed to make some postcards with the image that they photographed. So we used to use this printer called 4x6, which is one of these online printers. Those already existed where you just send in a PDF and they print it. You'd only get a soft proof. That was my first time dealing with a printer like that. Now, keep in mind, I had these print buyers who sat in a desk right next to me who helped me with all the stuff, and they worked with printers who would check your files.
Yeah. Like to get a thing printed, there's like, even now, there's still a lot of people that have eyes on it and are touching it and will probably complain at you about various things.
Right. It was the pink issue, and it was all these, what are those Easter marshmallow?
Oh, the Peeps.
The Peeps. It was pink Peeps.
Uh-oh.
And everyone loved the shit out of this cover. And I was so I made this postcard with the
it's already starting at a dangerous place.
And we were making postcards for it. We were going to sell the postcards as, in our shop. And I submitted it as an RGB file.
Oh no.
And that printer, they just gang everything up. They don't check anything.
So yeah, RGB is the visual, like the color system of the screen, and CMYK is the color system of print. And like it's always been like you do files in CMYK if you're going to print them.
Right.
And if you do RGB in the print, it looks bad. But we had a field trip to a printer here in town, and we talked to a pre-press person, and he straight up told us, do not send us files in CMYK, send us RGB files.
What?
And it felt like he punched me in the mouth.
Well, I bet they have now. I guess they have software that probably does something automatically. The moral of this story is to ask your printer what they want.
Yes.
But in this case, we were meant to convert it, and software did not convert it for you, and they did not check shit for you.
No.
So it came out really washed out. And the person who took the photo was the husband of the co-founder. And he was pissed.
Oh, no.
And he was not friendly. He was like a curmudgeon. And I can say this because they're divorced now. And she is still a very close friend of mine. But he made me feel like shit.
Oh, God.
And keep in mind, this was probably $50.
Yeah.
And every cent counted for the magazine because we weren't a nonprofit yet. But, every penny counted. But at the same time, it was like, you're not really helping. I realize I made a mistake. There's not anything we can do about it. I learned my lesson, and I'm sorry it was your photograph. But, the irony of it being a feminist publication and this dude just losing his shit because his photo came out washed out. It's like, we're not going to use him. Okay.
Yeah.
That was like, wow, that really hurt. Like I had never been. And it sounds funny now. It was just some postcards that were sent to a printer, like one of these online printers. But I do remember just feeling like I massively fucked up. And then I think I talked to my dad about it, who's always a calming voice for me. And anytime I've gone to him to talk about career stress, his response is usually something like, is anyone going to die?
Yeah. Well, that's that's the perspective.
Yeah.
It's like those fuck ups that happen like really early, like they have so much more
impact
weight to them because you feel like you'll never live it down. And like we see this with students all the time. Like, you'll have a student who like they're in the page layout class and they do a print wrong and they'll like never want to print anything ever again.
Right.
So you have to counsel them through, like, you learned the bad way of doing it and now you can try it again and it will get better.
In the safety of school.
Yeah.
Or the safety of an internship, you can do that stuff.
Yeah. And it's like, that dude sucks.
Yeah.
So like, if you're in an environment where somebody is going to treat you like dirt for that, also like, that's not maybe good.
He wasn't an employee. He was a freelancer. And, he was out of the picture. I mean, he's out of the picture and everything, but it wasn't long before he would not talk to me like that. My confidence grew and he was asking me for advice on shit. So, but yeah, it's hard when you're young and you're still gaining your, confidence in your discipline. And I think I had been supported pretty well in my other job. And I was on my own. Like, I was the quote unquote art director. Well, I was literally the art director.
Did you have any other designers working with you?
No.
Oh God.
So it's and so
that's such a scary position to be in. Yeah, the one and only.
At that age, at a time when computer stuff is still pretty new.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really know that. So I'm now, I'm using it as an excuse after making graphic memes. But, I do think
we see that all the time in students. Like, to them, like, UI UX is a field that's existed in perpetuity and not like, I mean, it really broke recent. Like 5 years ago as a big thing.
Yeah. So, sometimes I think on it and I've had little things here and there, but it's not going to break me. But that's the thing with print. I will say is like it goes down for good. You put it in print and it's there. And that's what you have to sort of understand if you work in that medium. And for those of you that, who are like pondering which direction you want to go in, that's the beauty of interaction is that you can, update stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, look at these apps. Sometimes they're updating 3 times a week.
I have a male client. It's not a gentleman client, but it gives me my email, which is a service that I wish nothing provided. Don't email me, friends. It has like 3 updates a day and it's driving me batty.
That's not right.
How does a developer have the time to be shipping this? Just batch them up a little, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's like, that does go to like that thing that you're talking about, the print, like print is permanent. Print is like,
I mean, that's also the beauty of it is that, for instance, I teach history and the things that are printed are easier for me to show. They have been collected more easily. I think if the web world and the interaction world are smart right now, they'll be better at documenting their stuff. But I will say the tech world has so far not been good at keeping track of their legacies.
No.
My understanding is that Apple does not have a archive.
When Steve Jobs came back, he threw it all in the trash. He had it removed, which is such a weird energy.
Yeah, it's interesting which companies have them and which don't.
Yeah.
Letraset doesn't have one.
That's wild.
But like Hallmark has an extensive, incredible archive. I would love to get in there, but I don't think they would let me in there.
Oh, I mean, I feel like you're the expert in the field of the history of graphic design.
Well, I'm particularly interested in all their custom lettering because they have all these photo fonts in there and stuff. But yeah, it's just, it makes me sad. And then for like Aldus, PageMaker.
Like the first page design software.
The first one that really
the one that broke. Yeah.
All the archives are really just banker boxes that live with the founder. So
just some floppy disks.
I hope he's made plans for that stuff. I took pictures of a lot of it, but
wow.
So that's anyway. If you're in tech and you're someone who has control, see if you can't make plans for and it not stills because like I have pictures of these websites from the 90s and the early 2000s, and it's hard to even know if what was going on.
Well, yeah. And that's the thing is like, when I was starting, part of the reason I picked web is it seemed like a fresh new thing and that was exciting, but also just I'm not a confident gentleman as you may have gathered from knowing me for so many thousands of years. But like the idea, especially when I was just starting out, that a thing that I did would be in place forever and I couldn't fix it was so terrifying. And so like that pushed me to do web instead. And like nothing I made then still exists. Like it just is gone in a way. Like I'm lucky enough that like I can go on to archive.org and I can see some of the like sort of broken versions of the thing that I made. But like anybody who was a little bit older than me and was like doing websites in Flash, that stuff's just gone. It doesn't exist in the world
I don't know
anymore.
if we had screen recording back then.
No, not at all.
I guess that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Like, so you gotta capture that stuff. But I think the other thing too is just like that stuff, that work dated very quickly. Like even websites I made like 5 years ago are like,
it doesn't matter. That's great. That's great.
Yeah. They're good. They're good for historical
a lot of my work
posterity,
dated.
but I would not want
to some work I made in like 1999.
Yeah.
It was very fun to come back to. It was like me definitely trying to do like some David Carson shit.
just some real experimental, messy,
deconstructive,
all over the place
type,
design.
For sure. Yeah.
I was telling another guest on a previous episode that like that was kind of what they were still trying to teach us. I mean, they were still trying to get us to. I had a teacher tell me that you would never present any work digitally to a client.
When was this?
This was in 2008.
Oh, wow.
So we were still trained on like you print a thing out and you put it on a giant piece of black museum board.
Oh.
And then I guess you just have a bunch of museum board cards that you're shuffling through, which even at the time seemed really crazy.
Yeah.
But
it's changed so fast.
It really it did. And I think they were just like a little, I mean, maybe that was still a going concern in 2008, but I know like by the time I got up here, that was like ancient history.
Yeah.
Portland is a futuristic city in the future. In the future, we will all have carts that deliver us food, I guess. We certainly don't have any buildings that have food in them downtown anymore. But yeah, like I think that also like brings to mind like I wondered this about my work because like I mean you've been designing longer than I have, and like there's definitely like a window in which I'm proud of stuff, and like as soon as something starts to cross out of the window of time, then I'm just like I can't even look at it. But it's also like a thing that I've just made, I also can't really look at. Like I'm just aghast at it.
Yeah, I mean, stuff that's just been printed is very hard for me to look at.
Yeah,
but I can I couldn't look at bitch issues right when I had right when they came out. I was terrified of errors.
Yeah, that's the big error.
Yeah,
I once shipped a thing that I realized had a very, very large error in it, and I didn't realize it until like a month later, and it was a time sensitive piece, and it was just like no. But like nobody said, so like the thing had passed, so like nobody said anything, so I guess it didn't really matter.
It didn't affect.
I guess
people.
not.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a part of a venue map for an event. And this was like 5 years ago, maybe. And like, you know, people have the phones and they tell you generally map things now.
Yeah.
Doesn't change how much time I did put into that map, which was actually a lot of time.
Yeah.
Maps are, if you see a map, somebody took a lot of time to make it. Just please remember that and don't just throw it in the trash. But anyway, I did a bad job with that map because I left off one of the venues of the events. And I guess no one was referencing it because.
Well, if you had the address, that's what matters.
That is the thing that matters. And
if they say, I can't find it. Well, here's the address.
You're not plotting. I mean, that was a map that up until I came on had just wrong streets on it. Just like, I mean, you hear that about like, you know, in old map design, you'd have little paper towns and like trap streets and like little things to show in case someone else copies your map. You know, this is my map. I made this map. That map just had a lot of those in as much as it was not well drawn. It was entirely wrong in lots of areas.
Oh, man.
So I improved the map part. I just didn't improve the have all locations on the map part, which is a bummer. for the one person that was looking at it for that, I bet.
Yeah.
They didn't say anything, though, so I'll take it.
Well, it had redundant info, so you're fine.
It did. It's redundant with regards to all the other ways to get maps that are much better now. Not that they're not without problems, certainly.
That's true.
Ooh, I can say that as an Apple Maps user. I love Apple Maps. I love how inaccurate all the things are.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're a masochist.
It looks better, though. It's a nicer looking. Google just seems to have made theirs just really ugly. They seem to have really sat down and just had a meeting where they said, what if we just take all the things that make things look pretty out of this and just make it really bad looking?
So you like
all the colors, let's make them just
form
bad.
over function, huh?
I guess so, yeah. That speaks to me as a person maybe too much. Although you wouldn't know that looking at well, maybe you would. This studio is a triumph of neither form nor function. It's bad at all the things it attempts to do.
I think it's charming.
You're very kind. It's got a big mess all over the place. That's me, Sean Schumacher, a big mess all over the place. So Briar, you've done a bunch of things. You've done movies, you've done books.
Singular each.
Well, you did book.
Did movies.
I guess you did magazines, so people could go find those magazines.
Publications,
in magazine art. Mm-hmm. Actually, can you get back issues from Bitch?
Yeah. I don't know if any of mine are still in back order.
But yeah, if people want to get your book, if people want to get your movie, how do they do these things?
Baseline Shift, you can go to papress.com, and Graphic Means, you can go to graphicmeans.com. You search Graphic Means, Vimeo on demand, but I really think just going to graphicmeans.com.
You get the full website experience.
Yeah.
If you're a design student, like search your library's website, because I know like ours has it on there, and I've told so many people to go find it there.
Yeah. Well, I like to stream together when students, if they're at home, but we watch together over Zoom. That linotype. I also like to show the Eames film, The Painter and the Architect.
That's amazing. So graphicmeans.com and papress.com.
Yes.
Get Briar's things. And if people want to learn more about you, where can they see your gorgeous website?
That is briarlevit.com.
briarlevit.com.
Yes.
And all your social things are linked off of there, I assume.
Yeah, well, I'm on Instagram. It's just Briar Levit.
So yes, this is not the right card. I have so many cards.
So professional.
I'm trying.
They're even like
I have blue card of host.
Yeah.
But
very hosterly.
They're not really even cards. They're cardstock that we've never used that I cut down in a weird way.
That's how they do it.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know. It's cheap to do, I would imagine. Friends, we are just starting out as a show, and I would love it if you could spread the word to your friends about this show called Did I Do That? It is really hard when you're just starting out to get attention, and the best way to spread it is via word of mouth. So, tell a friend if you are interested in this goofy thing. That helps a lot. The other thing that helps a lot is if you go to the place that you get podcasts and subscribe. I guess it's hard to listen to this otherwise, but I don't know. Maybe you do it a weird way. But B, give us a 5-star rating. I would really appreciate that, and especially a written review, because those people like to read those, especially on the Apple podcast service, which I have definitely called iTunes in a couple of these outros. The other thing you can do is you can go and learn more about the show via the website that is hopefully going to be up by the time you hear this, dididothat.design, and that will link to all the social media things if I did choose to do those. But you can also find some of that stuff in the show notes, I would imagine, the info section of this particular episode. And yes, my name is Sean Schumacher, and this is a show called Did I Do That? And as always, we say, did I do it good? Did I do a good job? Okay, that's it. Bye. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Kind of nice to support a company that's not in Silicon Valley for once.
Why? Now, there's nothing bad that's ever come out of Silicon Valley. It's certainly not the destabilization of all the democracy or anything. There's a water bottle right there.
Lovely. I brought my own.
You brought your own.
I don't even have to unscrew the cap.
Is it water or is it?
Yeah,
is
it's
it
water.
Coffee?
It's
Ooh.
water. I keep this at school. Always have water.
It's a good thing to have.
Yeah, and I like the feeling like I'm drinking coffee, but it's just water.
People think you're just so buzzed all the time.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Always with that coffee.
So I brought in the bad Bob Ross drinks that Kate mentioned, and I hadn't really looked at the back of them, and I was kind of shocked when I pulled them out of my backpack and turned it around, and there's 10 milligrams of caffeine in this Bob Ross drink.
Good Lord, what did they taste like?
Oh, they tasted like, I think it was Gage who had the spot on description, which was it's like a popsicle melted, like the bad kind of popsicle you get from the Safeway in the very bottom of the freezer.
Yeah. I mean, Red Bull tastes like bubble gum or something to me in a way. So I'm not surprised. Not surprised at all.